Hello and welcome to What's Cooking Rutland. I'm Bethany. I'm a nutritionist at the Vermont Department of Health and part of Rutland's Nutrition Coalition that brings you this show each month. And so last month, I hope people are still enjoying the babies that we had on board, talking about foods for older babies. And now we're going to move from foods for older babies to foods for the rest of us. So those older adults. And so much fun. Joining me is Donna Hunt, who's going to come into the screen. We're going to open up those cameras. And I think of this as it's back to school time, rolling into September, which, yeah, I know, back to school, that end of summer vacation.
Way too fast.
Donna's all tan from being at the lake. So, you know, that summer vacation mode is coming to an end. People are really getting back into the groove of work. Kids have been launched to college or they're getting ready to go back to school. So we're calling this show Back to School Lunches, but we're going to do this a little differently because if you look at that, you may be thinking, oh, we're going to be talking about what to pack for kids' lunches from home. And the research would really suggest that you would be better off having your kiddos eat lunch at school. That children who choose and eat school lunch eat more fruits and vegetables, they're offered them more whole grains, they drink milk that they isn't necessarily
so much.
haven't sent them from home. Yes, so many wonderful changes have happened in school lunch. It is not the school lunch that you might have grown up with. So there's great things happening there. And so really have your kiddos choose lunch at school because there is salad bars, all kinds of awesome things. So they'll get to a lot of really great, wonderful, healthy food. On the other hand, for us, eating out may not necessarily be such a good idea. So we should be thinking about packing our lunches from home because A, it certainly is expensive to eat out. Not that I want to say anything horrible about not supporting our local restaurants, but every single day. And you will not necessarily eat quite as healthy. So you may not get to as many fruits and vegetables as if you pack from home. And if we tilt the camera down a little bit, you can kind of see, you know, Donna's here. So we just have lots of fruits and vegetables that we're going to be talking about here today. So you'll get more of those if you bring lunch from home. Portion sizes will be more reasonable and more fitting for you. So, yay! So we've got a lot of things lined up. We're going to see how far we get. We've got some tuna salad done 2 different ways. So for the vegetarians in the crowd, we've got some bean spread. So if you get tired of the same old hummus, that we've got a really cool hummus recipe for you next month. So preview. We're going to do some different things with pinto beans, black beans. We'll see how far we get. But, you know, I'm the sweet tooth. Got to talk about dessert and do that first. And so bringing something sweet from home, again, you can control what you're doing. So as always, one of my favorite websites, Food Hero, has an apple bar that we're going to play with. So Donna's going to pluck some of these apples. It's apple season, so she's gonna cut some apples. The recipe, when we point you to the website, is probably going to say to peel those apples, but yeah, right, we don't peel apples on our show. So we're just gonna cut those and, you know, slice them into thin pieces, and I'm gonna work on the base of these apple bars over in this bowl.
And are these slices or are these little squares?
Good question. It says slices. So they're going on to squares, so relatively thin, so that they'll actually cook down kind of thing.
Okay.
So we're going to work with a base over here. We've got apple cutting there, base here, and this is really quite a simple recipe to pull together. It's not a lot of ingredients, which is kind of fun, even though I feel like I'm surrounded by tons of things. So I've done a little pre-measuring to speed things up. The recipe calls for 1/2 cup of white flour, 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. You can choose some, so just disclosure, I did some of these ahead of time because otherwise we would run out of time on the show. I used all
really
white
yummy
wheat flour, yes, and we have sampled. They're quite good. So but I'm going to stick to the recipe here. 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. I actually ran out of whole wheat flour, so this is 1/2 cup of white wheat flour. So that's getting thrown in.
And was it 2 apples?
It says 3 cups of apples, so that might be a little bit more than 2 apples. And like most things, if we're generous with it, it's just fine. A little bit of baking soda to just help pull things together. So I'm going to throw 1/2 teaspoon in here. And my favorite instrument for mixing dry ingredients, whisk that together.
Sorry, I'm making so much noise.
I know, we're just making a racket here. I'm gonna add a cup of old-fashioned oats, and so you wanna go with an old-fashioned oat as opposed to an instant kind of oatmeal. It's just that you're gonna have more fiber, good things happening. Steel cut isn't gonna work, but you know, old-fashioned is great, what you want.
And it really does make a difference in the consistency when you use the instant or the 1 minute cooking oats versus the old-fashioned.
They get mushy. It gets really mushy.
Yeah, they just sort of dissolve up.
They do.
Yeah.
So yeah, just really kind of mushy. So a scant half a cup of brown sugar. And again, just mix this in using a whisk. So what I like about this recipe is it's one bowl. Always a good thing. Make it easy in the kitchen. I just have to pull apart some of these brown sugar chunks. And then we're going to cut in a stick of butter. I have a pastry blender, but if you don't, the 2-knife method always works. And people may be thinking, oh my gosh, a whole stick of butter, but we're working in a 13x9 pan. So this makes a lot. So it's really not that bad. And working with real butter as opposed to shortening. And
Just want to stay away from those hydrogenated fats.
yeah, you really do. And I know some folks have been really successful with playing with oil in various ingredients, and I'm not sure how that would actually work in this kind of recipe. So I'm just going to cut in this butter until it looks like some crumbs, and this just takes a little bit. And those apples look beautiful.
And am I placing them into the pan first?
Nope, not yet. So this is actually going to get built in layers. So we're going to put about half of, once I get this butter worked in. And I'm realizing I need to throw some fun seasonings in here. So I'm going to just take a quick break from that and add in about a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. And I'm not even going to measure because these things are just so yummy. Throw that in.
One thing about baking with fruit stuff is I find it is so much more forgivable on, compared to baking a straight flour, sugar, butter kind of mixture. They're just more forgivable as far as portions. You don't have to be as exact in measuring. And
right. You just don't. And I always just really like to be generous with the seasonings. Obviously, if you put too much cinnamon or something, it's going to almost it'd be too strong. But I just really, it just, adds all that flavor. But yet these kinds of recipes they're just way more forgiving when you're working with fruit. And I'm always mixing stuff up.
And the berries this year.
Oh, it's been amazing. Amazing.
Some yummy blueberry stuff up at the lake that was just...
Yeah, and I think that this recipe, while these are apple bars, you could use pears. Peaches have been crazy this year. They've been so good. You could put peaches in this. A combination of peaches and blueberries. How yummy would that be? Oh my goodness. So yeah, you really can play around with what you're doing. In terms of what fruit you're adding, and I don't know, apples and blueberries are even great together. So,
and as we've always said, recipes are a guideline.
Yes, which I just feel like so grown up in the cooking world that I've gotten better at that, as opposed to just being a follow the recipe kind of girl. I'm like breaking out. Yay! How many years has it taken? So we've got some nice crumbs going on here. So we're just going to clean up this pastry blender a smidge to get everything out. off of it, and just going to take about half of it. So this is just kind of eyeballing. My fingers have been washed. I think sometimes when you're trying to work in butter, sometimes working with your fingers is almost easier. But we're going to throw about half of it into the pan, and then just spread this out. May take a little bit more, another handful.
And do you sort of pat it down?
Kind of sort of pat it down.
So it's sort of like an apple crispy thing,
It
but
kind of sort of
into bars.
into bars. So so it has this little, that's exactly what it is. But we've taken some of that crumble topping and put it at the bottom so that there's a base. And then from here, the fruit is going to get put on top. So do you need the measuring cup back?
Do we put all the fruit?
Yeah, I mean, it says 3 cups, but we can just really kind of play. And if you are, want to be super fancy, you could be layering these apples so that they have a nice pattern. Not my style, because I'm usually just trying to get something done. So yeah, we'll take a few more because there's a little. These could be covered a little bit more. Go ahead, throw it in, we'll see. Great, yum. And then we're just gonna sprinkle the rest of the topping on top. And if your household likes raisins, then a little bit, I have a mixture here of just some regular raisins as well as some golden raisins, and I think I'm just going to use these up. These are a little dry, but that's the nice thing about going on top of this fruit, that there's going to be plenty of moisture to plump them right back up in the oven. So I'm going to pull them apart.
Raisins also.
Could do raisins, yeah. So really, whatever kind of dried fruit on top, and it just adds more fiber, more flavor.
And it just gives that pretty contrasty
It does, just
color
kind of
to
dots
it.
it up here. So yeah, so we're going to throw this in the oven. We'll take a peek at them towards the end of the show to see how they're doing, but it does need about 40 minutes in the oven because these apples have to cook. So we're going to toss this in, and decisions. We have so many fun things to play with next. So, should we play with some tuna salad?
Let's play
with tuna salad? Yeah. So we have 2 nifty recipes to work with. One is called a curry tuna salad wrap, and it has lemon in it, and grapes, and celery, and onions, and almonds. And then this other really cool recipe from Eating Well that's called Tuscan style tuna salad that has white beans added to it, cherry tomatoes. We're going to throw a little basil in. So what do you want to work on over there? And I'll work on over something over here.
Okay, so let's start with
which one
the
is speaking to you?
Tuscan.
Gonna go with the Tuscan?
So the beans.
Go. Are you passing that to me, or are you keeping?
Tomatoes I'm keeping.
Fabulous.
If you want to just measure out the olive oil and the lemon juice.
I can do that.
We're just gonna, for demonstration's sake, just make half of the recipe here, so that we don't end up with tuna coming out of our
eyeballs.
ears.
Yeah.
We have a
fork
or something
right in there to pull that out. And so as Donna's starting to pull this tuna out, we were chatting, when I was looking to purchase tuna, oh my gosh, there are so many choices. It's so hard. and I think I picked a winner in that it's solid white in water.
Is my preference, but
say more about that.
A flavor preference as far as solid versus chunk. Solid is a little bit more expensive. Chunk is a little more fishy tasting, I find it.
Okay.
And definitely want it packed in water. The packed in oil, it's typically a not a natural tuna fish oil.
Right, right. And I was looking at some of them and it was like, oh, soybean oil. That's the packed in oil as opposed to, olive oil, which would even be a better oil for something to be packed in. So, yeah. Ooh, I just found all the seeds I need to pick out of this lemon.
Instead, we're going to add a little olive oil into this. And cherry tomatoes, don't have any cherries, right? So we're just going to do some whole tomatoes.
We do, right on the board in front of you.
Oh my goodness.
And they are washed, so you've got cherry tomatoes. I did pick some.
You are on the ball.
Well, part of it is, we have all these veggies and, while we're making half the recipe, it's just go to town, it's just like that really just kind of becomes a guidance. I'm fishing for lemon seeds here.
Is 5 cherry tomatoes, but again, the recipe, you can do it however you want. If you want it more tomatoey, or if you have smaller tomatoes, and however you want to do it. The beauty of.
Oh, and this is another one bowl dish. Oh my gosh, love it. Happy, happy day. So I just reamed a lemon. So I have a bunch of beautiful lemon juice here. So I'm going to carefully pour. Can I do this? This is tricky. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Oh gosh, that worked. Awesome.
Lemon, I find to be one of the best things to just always have some lemons in your fridge.
I think I'm about to start doing that.
It makes the best salad dressing.
The oil didn't go in here yet, did it?
No.
No, so we're gonna add a tablespoon of oil. I think that I'm about to enter that world of always having lemons in the house and just, adding
just squeeze it onto chicken, squeeze it onto a salad, to a shrimp thing.
You're working on scallions, the tomatoes, and we're cutting the recipe in half because we're just using a small can of tuna as opposed to a huge can of tuna. But we could even add more of the beans to that. And these are, as you all know, they were canned beans because that's what I work with. And they had been rinsed and drained to deal with the sodium. And so then we're gonna have this tuna salad made, and gosh, there are so many ways now to eat it. So I'm a sandwich girl. Are you a sandwich girl, Donna?
Well, I like them, but I don't typically bring sandwiches for lunch.
Okay. What do you bring for lunch? Here I am putting it on the spot.
think partially because I don't love the bread getting soggy.
Soggy, okay.
I oftentimes will bring, leftovers is my typical.
Yeah.
I will make extra of whatever and then bring the leftovers. But cottage cheese and fruit, leftovers from the night before, salad. I do a lot of salads.
Lots of great things.
Yogurt.
And I tend to be a sandwich kind of girl, but looking then for whole grains. So I've brought in, but not necessarily a bread sandwich, because a lot of times it's just too much. So wanting to control the portion a little bit. So pita pockets are really kind of fun, and
those sandwich thins.
The sandwich thins are smaller, and the pita pocket, when you look at the label, it talks about the whole pocket as being the serving size. This is, that's too much for me, maybe in my younger days, but not anymore, or maybe for a spouse. So cutting it in half, then it becomes more of an appropriate portion. And so then the tuna, a small amount can go into the pocket, and then really go to town with the lettuces around that. So do we have everything in here?
I don't know what happened to the recipe.
I think I threw it behind us. Yeah, just send you on a wild goose chase there.
Okay,
so we've got tuna,
the white beans, the tomatoes, the scallions, the oil, the lemon juice, the salt, and pepper. So
we're just going to put a little pepper on top to taste. And then, yes, I'm just going to put some into this
typically with tuna, you don't really need extra salt because you've got the sodium in the tuna.
Right.
And then also a little bit with the canned beans, even though it's rinsed off.
I know. I'm so excited about
Just
those
to
canned beans.
give a little plug about the beans.
Yeah, please do.
Beans are such a wonderful thing. And wherever you can add any kind of chickpeas, black beans, cannellini, any kind of legumes into things, lentils, any of those, it's just such a great way of getting a really healthy fiber source. That fiber fills you up more so, and it stays with you longer so that you're not as hungry later. She's ready to dive in.
I know, I am ready to dive in. So yeah, so I'm not even seeing the tuna anymore, and the concerns of it perhaps being too wet. You could actually line the whole pocket first with your lettuce, and that kind of is going to create a nice little barrier from the moisture, and things will go in. And so a lot of times my pitas are filled with some sort of bean kind of dip, whether it's hummus or something else, and a piece of cheese goes in, and then just loads of lettuce on top. So little bit of tuna, loads of lettuce. I love the beans in here. I'm super excited, and I am using great willpower here, and I'm just going to put it on a plate for now. So that's tuna salad round 1, and so tuna salad round 2
is with some curry and yogurt and lemon juice
and grapes. So I think celery and
onion.
so all of these things. And so what's fun about working with something like even celery, if we were adding carrots to it, is while we're chopping some to actually go into the tuna, cut some other pieces to then go into another little bag to have on the side to munch on. So that becomes a great way to do that. And a lot of times, if I too am not necessarily, if I don't have bread in the house, which certainly happens, then it becomes just this little buffet of things, a little bit of hummus and some crackers or a wassa bread and lots of vegetables, and the cucumbers coming out of the gardens right now are amazing. So just sliced cucumber with all of this, so it's just great. So I'm going to cut up a piece of celery and some grapes.
You could also do this with chicken, either of these recipes, with leftover chicken from the night before. It's a great thing to, whenever you're grilling chicken or baking chicken or cooking chicken up in any way, is do a couple of extras.
Yes,
and
definitely
throw it
one
in
of
the
my favorite
freezer
things to do.
as it is, or just work it into all sorts of different forms. And that is something that, just to mention, the importance of variety.
Yeah.
And there are just so many of those wonderful little phytonutrients, those things that are in any of our plant-based foods that are just so important for our immune system, for feeding the healthy bacteria in our gut, all of that. We just really need those good things. So we need 1/4 cup of yogurt, and we've got...
Right, and the original recipe called for lemon yogurt, but it didn't seem like that was necessary if we can add lemon juice. So we just have some plain yogurt, and I picked up some Greek yogurt just so that it would be a little
creamier.
Thicker, creamier. I'm just chopping up
and it's a little higher in protein, a little lower in carbohydrate. And just to give a plug that carbohydrates are not a bad thing by any means.
Right. We need them.
We need carbohydrates. We need them for the nutritional value, for the energy. We just want to try to eat healthy carbohydrates that have
some of these celery
good nutrients in them.
Ready, celery. I just toss everything. Is this another kind of sort of a dump and stir?
Yes, just toss and stir.
Great.
1 tablespoon of fresh lemon juice, a teaspoon of curry powder.
And I'm going to cut
curry.
some grapes. I know, it's so much fun.
One thing about curry that I have learned, I very rarely have it around the kitchen long enough to get sort of stale, but if your curry does get sort of stale, it loses some of its pow factor.
Oh,
So if you have a brand new thing of curry,
Be
and
careful.
if you typically go heavy on the curry, you might want to be a little careful.
Be
If it's
careful.
a brand new, if it's been around a little while, then you can go heavy. Okay, so you're doing the grapes, you've
yep,
done the
I'm cutting
celery,
some grapes in half over
some
here.
red onion, 2 tablespoons of almonds.
Red and slivered almonds. So just packing all of these really interesting, this isn't tuna salad that's just tuna salad, lemon juice, and mayo. It's really,
Loaded with a
just
variety
loaded with
of
a lot of great things.
Yeah.
So really boosting the fiber content, and just adding so many more interesting flavors so that for folks who, for tuna might just not be their favorite thing, there's just a lot of other flavors going on here. If it is a little too fishy, or as Donna shared, this is going to be fabulous, any of these things to substitute chicken in. So here comes some grapes.
All these wonderful colors are just providing all those wonderful phytonutrients.
And, this could go into another pita pocket, which could get lined again with tomato and lettuce if you wanted to, or playing with, I brought in some whole wheat tortillas to actually do a wrap thing and slicing, because that can be fun, all lined up in a little box or in a bag.
For folks that are wanting to spend their carbs in other ways, if you preferred to have more fruit along with this and you just didn't want the bread or whatever, can also wrap it like in a big leaf of a
In lettuce,
romaine, something like that.
Yep.
I overcut on the onions.
That's a little bit more than 2 tablespoons,
Yes,
but
that is quite a bit more
maybe
than
don't
2
need quite that
tablespoons.
much. Though for some people they are going to want to have that, and onions are so good
In
for
there.
you.
They
So
are.
This
Even
is
in-
really beautiful.
And just to make a plug, I was just talking with somebody today about this, that it used to be thought that you had to eat things that had lots of color to them.
Right.
And even white things like white onions and mushrooms and iceberg lettuce and those things, they still are very rich in all those phytonutrients.
Yeah, they are.
So it doesn't have to be about the most vibrant colors.
Right.
Just anything that's a fruit or a vegetable, plant-based.
So I'm going to experiment here with doing like a wrap. So I've just kind of laid down a little layer of lettuce on this tortilla. And we're going to experiment with just throwing some of this tuna salad.
Oh, were we going to put a little
Across the
basil
middle.
in there?
I think we were doing that with the other one, but you know what we could do instead is just stuff some basil leaves right into the sandwich. So throwing some of that tuna on.
You want it on this one? Or
Sure,
the
why
other
not? And
Oh, baby.
I know, doesn't that look amazing? So let's see if I can turn this around. Oh my gosh. It's working! Woohoo! And so some things are falling out a little bit, so it might want to get boxed, and you could cut it. I'm just going to go half to keep things simple, but it could also be cut into quarters or little finger-sized pieces with toothpicks. And oh, that looks
Pretty.
really,
Yum.
really pretty. Yum. So we're going
And
to
if
add
you
that
wrap
to
it
our
up
plate.
tight in like a plastic wrap, it's amazing how it just melds it all
It's going to all
together.
stay. Yeah, it's all going to stay together
Yeah.
really well. Threw some celery there. And I'm curious, I'm looking at the time. We're not going to get to our bean dips.
Oh dear, we've been blabbing a little too much.
Well, so yeah, these need to stay in the oven. We'll grab a picture of them afterwards, but we're going to pull out the apple bars that I had done up ahead of time at home and make a little real estate here. And you know, as they came out of the oven, they really took a little while to cool and set up as opposed to just really falling apart, but they hold together nicely with having that
still cool.
cooked base. So once they're really cool and been in the fridge. So these are really super yummy, these apple bars, and they're going to keep for several days. I don't know how well they would actually freeze, but they might freeze okay. And if they become too crumbly, just throw them in a bowl and eat it with a spoon. It's a healthy version of an apple crisp. So there we go. So we have some on a plate here. So we're going to put up those recipes for those bean dips that we did not get to because they're super, super easy to do and they become a great vegetarian alternative to the tunas that are here. But yeah, I don't know where to dive in first to dip things into. So happy back to school, happy enjoying lunches from home. Thank you, this is really fun. And next month we have Kathy back. And Kathy's going to be back, and so hummus is on the menu. So you'll have an opportunity to get to the bean dips that we missed today. So thanks all. I don't know what I want to sample first. We'll see you next month. Happy fall. Might have to have a piece of apple because, you know, it's dessert. Why not? So I'm going to have a little piece here of this crumb.
Taste this.